super excited for this one today. I absolutely love when Mike and I can have conversations on air and off air. And I'm just super excited for what we're going to talk about today. I don't even really know where this conversation is going to go. I have a rough idea of what we are going to talk about. But every time Mike and I get together, whether it's on Twitter Spaces, whether it's on the live show, whether it's in person, we are continuously talking about basically the same thing. And this is what we're going to do today. As you guys can see on the YouTube title, this one is called Bitcoin Power Games. And the reason I named it this is because I fundamentally believe, and Mike does as well, that this is the game we are playing, and far too little Bitcoiners understand the real game that is going on in the world right now. And furthermore, the real game that Bitcoiners are playing. So before we get too far into this little rant, I'm going to bring in Mike. This is Mike Hobart. In my opinion, one of not only the most humble Bitcoiners that I know, but also one of the most badass Bitcoiners. This guy is not only has the proof of work of physical fitness, but his mental game is there. And I don't know if it was just Twitter that you and I connected, but when we met in real life, we were drinking martinis at the bar, and we were just ranting on each other for like an hour and a half. And so I figured, hey, let's try to capture some of that energy today for the people out there. So we're not the only ones privy to these private conversations. So what's up, Mike? What do you want to introduce yourself as to the people out there that aren't familiar with Mike Hobart on Twitter Spaces ranting with me every single day?
Way to put somebody like a Midwesterner on the spot. Like, I don't know.
I mean, at least I didn't do the Nika thing. This is the legendary Mike Hobart.
Yeah, right. No, but I appreciate you guys. You guys always like blow more smoke into my ego than I probably deserve. And to that point, my family would probably hate you because they get sick of my confidence enough. I don't know, man. Like, as far as like introduce, I guess like the best thing that I would be just like as a like I'm a pretty natural just like coach or teacher. Um, I've always like, it's funny because we were just talking before we got on here. Like, the last couple months I've been kind of getting back to my exercise science roots. Because for those that don't know, that's what I went to college for. Um, Exercise and movement science specifically, and the hard part for me was that I was kind of stuck in this duality. Like, I loved the exercise science space, hated the personal trainer title. Like, I absolutely hated it. Like, it was like one of the most cringe things about the space. And it also doesn't help that I'm like in an area of the country where the population density for the type of people that you want to be training, like from like the upper teens up through the 20s into the 30s and even into the lower 40s, like that age group, isn't really here. Like, they're here, but they're also mostly blue collar workers. So a lot of them don't really have a whole lot of time or energy or care to get into, like, they don't necessarily want to get into the gym and deadlift like a 3 rep max or anything. Now, plenty of the high school athletes do like that, sure, but like the market for strength and conditioning coaches for high schoolers that's another area that's pretty cringe. Like, you don't really need a whole lot of like qualifications to get in there. That's another thing that most people don't realize. Like, at best, typically you just need maybe a teacher's certification or a coaching certification, and those are relatively easy to get online. So I've been just getting back into my exercise science roots, putting together a website, workout plans to sell to people, that anybody that's interested. But yeah, that's about it. Well, I mean, that's not it. I've also been writing quite a bit, as you know.
You also work for GAM.
Yeah, I worked for Great American Mining for 2022. That was a ton of fun.
Let's go.
And the wild part is that like this is something that happens in Bitcoin a lot, right? Like, it feels like a year can feel like a decade, but it went by really, really fast. And that's what it felt like working for Great American Mining specifically. Like, working there was a shitload of fun, like a ton of fun. But then because it was so brief, it also didn't feel like I was there very long. But because of how much fun it was, I absorbed as much time as I could. it's this very weird kind of duality, almost like what would be the word, paradox. So that's kind of a long introduction.
Love it, and I love that this is where we started because guys, trust you me, we will get into the health by the end of this. I'm almost convinced we will get some health tips out of Mike by the end of this, but um, I kind of want to start with one of your latest articles, and I wrote here in my notes so I can remember. It's kind of interesting that you are, as I put it, getting back to your roots as a personal trainer. What you told me off air, we'll plug it at the end, but you said something that I find very interesting, and it's something you and I have talked about for a long time. And it's this idea that you said basically, you couldn't find the exact demographic that you want in your particular, environment in your area. But it's very interesting that this demographic is the demographic that as Bitcoiners, you and I continuously talk about. And it's what I've said in spaces before is that the majority of us are of that young man military fighting age. And I find that this is the thread that most Bitcoiners are really missing. I know the original cryptographers, cypherpunks, they are more like Gen Xers and stuff. They're a little older than us. And I find that the majority of people that I interact with are the young men of our age. Of course, there is women in Bitcoin as well. I'm not trying to negate the women that are a part of Bitcoin, but I find that the majority of people in this space are young men that are actively wanting to change the world, that are looking around and they're like, yo, like there's something wrong here, and I know a lot of the problems, but where are the solutions? And I think you wrote one of these great articles that did a real good job of connecting these threads. And I told you this is where we're going to start. And it's you titled the article "The Fiat Stress Machine and Masculine Compression." And I find it very, very not only interesting, but like an important thing that I'm trying to like push my thumb on is like, guys, we as the younger men generation, the young men out here, like we have a lot more power than we understand. There's a lot of us here. There's a lot of us that want to change the world, but like something has been stripped from us. And this is us like relearning this aspect of, I don't know, masculinity of society, of being a man in the world today. And, for lack of a better term, something that they've stolen from us, not only part of everything else that the fiat system has taken from us, but like, how do we interact with the world and become something that our ancestors can be proud of? And I think this is what we're all trying to do, is like step into really being something worthy in society. And this
Yeah.
article, guys, definitely go read it. First plug your Substack, and then let's talk about this article.
Substack should be drdoom.substack.com. I believe that's the URL. It's funny because I actually got called out by one of my friends on Twitter. I was kind of talking through her through like a difficult time, and she she called me out and claimed that the title Doctor Doom is an oxymoron because like I especially lately the last couple of months I've just been talking about like all like the kind of positivity stuff and like propping everybody up. But you can't be doomy all the time. Like if you're just doomy all the time, there's no point. There's no point in paying attention to anything I say. Um, what was the original question? You just wanted me to talk about the article a little bit?
Well, just talking about you actually said it today, and I thought this was a very like very solid meme. And you said something earlier today in our spaces like society adopts the characteristics of the
Ah,
currency. And
yeah,
it's like all of us young men are looking for something in the world right now. And like I said, like making our ancestors proud, becoming something worthy in society. And I think this is something you and I continuously talk
yes,
about.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So like, and the reason that one of the, well, not the main reason, but one of the reasons that I even decided to write like this article in particular is that there's become like if you haven't seen it yet, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but there's been a real social movement to really kind of push back against the popularity, and I would actually call it almost like an endemic of the use of pornography, like OnlyFans and Pornhub and whatever. Um, but like social media in particular and influencers are taking it from a sense of you're reducing your testosterone, you're taking away your drive and all that stuff. And while that's very true, um, not a whole lot of people are looking at the dynamics that are under the hood, because that's very much above the hood, in my opinion. That's very much surface levels, like skin level. It's very, very easy to see. Um, but nobody's really taking into account like the economics of stress. Nobody's taking into it. And that was the point of this article, is looking into, yeah, sure. Like, I agree. Porn's a problem. Diet's a problem. Not working out consistently is a huge problem. Um, but not a whole lot of people were looking at the fact that, like, we all stress out about money, right? Like, if you're if you're not part of the what do you guys that simply like to call them, the unproductive class. Like, if you're not part of the unproductive class, you're probably just riddled with stress the majority of your, like, maybe not the majority of your life, but a large part of the year. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, I would argue you're probably very stressed out on a consistent basis. Um, and if you're living paycheck to paycheck, like, statistically, there's a likelihood of having two jobs. I think the average for this is just for a dual adult household. The average number of jobs in a dual adult household is 2.3. So that means that at least on average, one of the adults is working two jobs. Um, and we have to, when we're thinking about economics and public health and behavioral economics specifically, like, we have to consider the dynamics of a population that is overworked and overstressed, and also look into how those economics are going to be affecting fertility rates. They're going to affect the freaking dating and marriage markets. Like, marriages are on the decline, divorces are on the incline. Um, and people are getting married and having kids later, which is not good for demographics. Like, if you've read Peter Zeihan, you've probably picked up on this. Um, I caution people on Peter Zeihan, because while he does make a lot of good points, he's also a statist, a pretty heavy statist, and he's also very close-minded to things that he isn't a complete expert in, which, can't really fault him for that. Most people do that. But if we're looking at, like, young men in particular, like, we have to really take into account all the dynamics that are driving, like, the behavior. Um, so if you're a young man that is, whether or not you have college debt, if you're a young man who's anywhere from 18 to 30, if you're out there trying to make things work and you're earning minimum wage, which could be anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 a year, you're barely paying rent. You can't really afford, like, it's really, really difficult to eat super, super healthy and have a quality gym environment on that kind of income. And when we look at the public health dynamics, like, when you start, like, lining these things up and really considering them, you start to understand why the US and Western world is in the position that we're in right now. Like, what I think 10% of the population is diabetic, with an additional 30% being pre-diabetic. And that's just diabetes. That's not considering the other chronic metabolic syndromes, like um, arthritis, osteoporosis. Well, Alzheimer's would be one, but it's later on. It's actually being called type 3 diabetes now. Obesity, obviously, morbid obesity. The terrible testosterone rates amongst young men in particular. The fertility rates, obviously. Like, all these things, like, we have to really, really, like, look under the hood and actually gain an understanding, because it's, while porn is a problem, it's not the only problem. In my opinion, it's not the sole problem. Like, to the point that you brought up, Opti, like, if you want to fix the problem, you have to give a sense of purpose first, right? And in order to do that, we have to look at all the problems first in order to start, like, tackling down some of these issues. And one of the biggest things, in my opinion, I think that you could agree, is that a the young men need, not only do they need a purpose, but they need a savings vehicle. Like they need a vehicle in order to like be able to scrape away what little they can in resources, put it to the side, and prepare for their future in some respect. Because I was there before I found Bitcoin in 17. Like in 17, I was like, I don't know where like what the hell I'm supposed to do. Like I was preparing to mobilize for deployment. I was about to go overseas. I was about to earn my first salary, and it was also going to be tax free. So I had a lot of capital that was going to be coming to me that I'd never had before, and I didn't want to piss it away like every other young soldier in the army does when they go on their first deployment. So I started looking into investment vehicles and strategies on how to do it while I was mobilizing down in Texas, and I came to the conclusion that like all the best investors were always ahead of the curve as far as like they put their money where the market was going to go first, or not first, but eventually it was going to go, like Amazon, Apple, right? Now the problem was before I came across Bitcoin, I was looking at all these different investment opportunities, and I came to the conclusion that they were all the exact same. Everything was the exact same. Like there was nothing special about anything. The only special investment opportunities you could ever get as an American citizen would be something that's behind the accredited investor wall. Because by the time those investments actually get to the public markets, all the value's been captured. So like the average American cannot actually generate wealth really in any of those regards unless you're going to just like capture maybe 3 to 8% per year. Nobody in the middle class can really afford to do that unless you're willing to sacrifice 10 to 15 years of your life, which if you're going to do that, why like what are we even doing? Like what like let's talk about something that's more real and more impactful to the larger like population. And that's where Bitcoin comes in. Um Now you take Bitcoin and you allow for these guys to be able to save a little bit, acquire, accumulate enough resources to the point where they can start taking some risks and actually try and do something that they value with their day to day life, which could mean, you know, starting up your own business or saving up enough to go take on like an apprenticeship or something like that. Because another thing that a lot of people don't know about the trades, I grew up in the pipe fitters trade. Um, Sometimes you have to sit on the bench and wait for an opportunity in apprenticeship school. Like you don't just apply and get in. Like there's slots that have to be filled. Um, so when it comes to trying to like line up your life like this to the point where you're not working some dead end bullshit job and just beating your head against the wall to earn a couple extra bucks, like that's not good for the soul and that's not good for your testosterone levels. It's not just not good in general. Um, so this kind of like framework starts to allow for us to start actually looking and like putting into place actual solutions to the point of where we've got young men in our population that have purpose and that also can start learning to like actually understand what real masculinity is versus what the fiat dollar produces, which is it promotes theft, it promotes lying, it promotes backstabbing, it promotes cheating, it promotes fraud. Like ever since 2008, like those have been the rules of the game. Like the cheaters, the fraudsters, and the liars are the ones that get ahead. It's not the guys that are the blue collar workers that are out there every day or the farmers that are out there every day doing what's right because they know what's right, but they're still basically 6 feet under already because they're laden with debt because they can't afford like you can't actually make the economics work of having an honorable and valuable lifestyle and be able to make it out with generating actual wealth. And that's probably like one of the biggest disgusting thefts of the American population that probably has happened since the justifications for the Revolutionary War, in my opinion. Um, because we're not being represented anymore. And that's the really frustrating part.
Mike, um, honestly, first and foremost, like you literally explained my story to a T. You know, like same boat in 2017. I've said it in the past, like Bitcoin, in my opinion, is like the great motivator. And obviously, I'm talking about our demographic, like young men. I'm 30, lower end of my 30s, and I've just noticed the effect that this had on me personally and all my friends. And like this couldn't have been like this. What you just said to me, like couldn't be more closer to the truth than anything that I know to be true. Like this is literally the facts of the scenario. I was having this exact conversation with my friend this morning. Obviously not as eloquent as Mike can put it, but I was doing the same rants with him, and he kind of like, once I was actually able to like get that point across that you just got across to everyone listening, he sat there and he was like, wow, like you literally are explaining it and it makes perfect sense to me now, like what game is actually going on right now. I'm like, dude, this is literally the game that is happening now. You are ahead of the curve and you understand what game is actually being played. And this is something like you and I have talked about this off air, but the idea that Bitcoin, when it succeeds, it is the ultimate power play. And by power, I mean like the political power game, like the ultimate power and status game that most men try to achieve to and go after. Like we are literally, I guess, or maybe it's more metaphorically, like flipping over the chess game and leveling the playing field and trying to take back all our power as an individual, as a man, because it's been stolen from us via the money printer. And like, this is the ultimate game. And I feel that most people don't understand, or they shy away from that. Like Bitcoiners try to shy away from politics. And you and I have had this conversation. Like politics is just pure power. Like it's just a game of power. And
Politics is literally just a power dynamic. That's all
yeah,
it is.
exactly. And most people are shying away from this. I'm like, Nico and I like had this epiphany one day and we're like, this is all a power game. Like this is what is happening right now. What's the like the origin of politics? You always tell me it doesn't it like literally mean like power or something like.
No, I don't. That must be somebody else that's more educated than me, because I don't know. I don't know what the origin of politics would be. Maybe I went down an autistic rant once, but
probably
because to be fair though, like you encounter politics when you're at your job. Like who usually gets the promotion for a job? It's rarely ever the person that does the job the best. It's usually a combination of the person who is liked most and does the job adequately. Unless you're in the army, then the army goes by rules of fuck up, move up. So like you don't want to be in that kind of situation. There was something that you mentioned that I wanted to touch on and I have lost it. So you probably just want to get back to talking again.
I don't know. I think it was Bitcoin is a pure power game, or politics is power. I don't remember exactly which one.
No, it was something. It was something to do with the young men. I can't remember what it was. I'll probably think of it as we're talking more.
No worries. I mean, it really blows my mind that like, I try to do my best to paint our narrative so that more people can get the same orange pill that we get and we understand it. And you kind of frame this perfectly in one of the spaces for me. And I was kind of shying away from actually saying it out loud. And then you were able to like explain it even better. And it's this idea that we just kind of touched on in the beginning about like, look, if you're a young man out there, if you're your mid 30s, you're Gen Zer, like the most important thing you can do right now is to get rich, is to save and build something for yourself, build capital. And this is not me telling you to do anything immoral, because I know in our society right now, like getting rich is like this like trigger word, and everyone's like, getting rich is bad and speculating on Bitcoin's bad. And it's like, guys,
that's what we were raised on. Like every single like kids movie demonized somebody that wanted to get rich. They're like, oh, you're Scrooge. I'm like, no, like I'm not like a piece of shit person. I just want financial independence so that I can have the freedom to do what I want and not have to work some bullshit job. Like that's not, how is that like the bad guy? Like a great example, it's actually a recent movie, is the movie Tangled. Like the protagonist, I can't remember his name, I don't really care. Flynn Rider. The character, like he just wanted to get rich. That's all he wanted, because he grew up poor. Like, how can you slight anybody for that when the bottom 60% of the US is living paycheck to paycheck or something like that? Like, even if it's more than 60%, that's bad. Like that's not a strong economy, like whatsoever. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on was like back to the demographics of men. Like, what you should not be surprised that on top of the economics, like the whole kind of behavioral economics thing that I laid out, then you have to consider also the kind of judicial legal system as far as parenting goes when you're dealing with co-parenting or divorce. Like both of the now, I'm not suggesting that there aren't pieces of shit guys out there. There are plenty. There are tons of guys that are pieces of shit. Um, but the system very much favors the mother, and I'm not complaining about that either. Like moms are very very important, but like fathers are not utterly useless. Like we play. I'm not a dad, but as men, as fathers, we play a massive role in child development. It comes much later, like for a lot of the functions of like teaching like the cold hard facts of reality. Um, but the father figure is very very important, and you can look into demographics as far as like men that fail or like men that do poorly in college or men that end up incarcerated. Like a lot of them come from fatherless or fractured homes, and when you have a system that out of balance favors women and almost actually like is very aggressive or offensive against the men on top of all the economic stuff, like no wonder guys are just fleeing to video games, living in their mom's basement, not like and not going out into the dating market and reproducing. They can't afford to get their own home. They can't afford the land, that's for damn sure. They can barely afford to pay rent. They can't afford to like really like just live like healthfully. Why the hell would you be out risking like dating and getting laid when you have the risk of getting the girl pregnant, and then on top of that you have to support like another life, and you have to risk her still leaving and taking 50% of your stuff? Like what what where is the math in there besides just, go be a man and get laid? Where is the math and where's the real world justification to actually try and live a full life? Most guys out there, this is what I wanted to touch on. Most of the guys out there that were like millennial or younger that I've interacted with in the last couple of years outside of the Bitcoin community, I describe them as narcissistic or nihilistic narcissists, because they see the world like kind of like in the way that I laid it out, and they're like, well, what's the point? Like, there's no way for it to improve. The fiat dollar is broken. America is broken. We don't see a way out. Now we're going into like potentially World War III or whatever. Like, why should I do that when I can just smoke weed, jerk off, and play video games in my parents' basement? And like that's enough for me to get by. Like, that's a disgusting rationalization, but that's where the nihilism comes from. And then a lot of these guys come from broken families because like the Gen X, like a lot of the Gen X dads that I've encountered with, including my own, like I love my dad. Like he taught me a lot of rules about like quality leadership, being a man, taking care of your guys, taking care of your team and all that. But he had his flaws, just like every other dad does. And a lot of these dads that I've interacted with, and a lot of the sons, which would like be my peers, I've interacted with, a lot of these father figures had serious insecurities that they masked with significant levels of narcissism, and the children picked up on that because that's what kids do. They're sponges. They just soak up whatever they're around. And then you're dealing with this nihilistic millennial and Gen Z generation that has also learned to cover up their insecurities with narcissism. And then you get to this point where they're like, "Oh, I'm the best there is for whatever useless reason, but the world's ending anyway. So why should I care?" And then, like, from that frame point, you start to really understand a lot of the politics that's happening right now, particularly on the like extreme left liberal like political side. And like, we don't have to make it super political or anything, but like, really both extremes, you can kind of see where all this stuff is coming from, and that just gives you a better framework for like how we need to fix this.
Bro, Dropping too much sauce, Mike. Dropping too much sauce. I really like your framing though. What you nihilistic narcissist.
Yeah.
That's kind of why, like, my moniker on the internet is Optimus Fields, because like I was that person, like I used to kind of joke and say like the same thing, like, what's the point of all this? I'm just gonna like, what's the meme? Get my kicks on Route 66, like just fucking party, whatever, have fun, just like
Yep.
don't worry about the future. Because like when I looked out at the landscape, and this was, from whatever, like 2012 to 2017, when I like became an adult, got out of college and all this stuff, I looked around and it was like the world seems to be falling around me, and there is no solution to this, and all the solutions are pointing to me just grinding it out, and like, hey, this is the world, deal with it. And then I find Bitcoin and I'm like, holy shit, like there is a totally new world here for not only me but for every one of my generations. And this is when I first started like my Johnny Appleseed evangelism, where I'm like, guys, you need Bitcoin. Like everything in your life is messed up because of the little, like the basic pretenses that we're starting this conversation was, is like young men are hopeless. They don't have a way to build what they've been told they should do for their lives to be a successful man. And we were literally like, rudderless boats just blowing in the wind. And what did they tell you to do? Oh, just enjoy your time, go party, have fun, and figure it out later, guys. Like you can figure it out later. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
like that's the most detrimental advice you could probably give a young man, is like, oh, be a perpetual child in college forever. And then, well, one day you'll figure it out and you'll get rich and it's like, holy shit, like I come from, I basically come from the same type of family, like, I wouldn't say it's like a broken home, but my parents got divorced, and like I do have a stepdad that I consider my dad, and he's the one that kind of raised me and taught me like how to be a better man and all this. But like I fundamentally had to learn all this stuff as I was growing older. And this is why I keep latching on to this idea of like, look, I am the same way as Mike started this conversation. Like I've always kind of looked at myself as a teacher, and I always want to help my younger friends get along in life and be like, look, bro, I may be older than you, but I can accelerate your learning curve and you can be better than I am at my age. Like, this is why you should be listening to me. Like, I went through all the pain. I made all the mistakes. I say the same thing. Like, I made all the Bitcoin mistakes, and yet I'm still here. And like, hey, listen to me or not. But this is back kind of to the idea that you and I talk about all the time on the importance of fitness, the importance of like living a good life, and how this is one of the best ways to spread our message is, being fit mentally, being fit physically, and having that purpose and having that optimism, and just continuously just pushing that message as hard as possible. So more people are like, yo, like, what's this Mike and Opti shit that they're on? Like, I want to live this life, because everyone around me is doom and gloom. It's fear porn. It's very negative. And we're just like, boys, sit down, have a conversation with your old Uncle Opti and Mike, and we're gonna teach you the ways of like what we've learned, what the hard knocks of life. And it's really kind of something you also said in our spaces a while ago. And it's this idea of like learning to be an entrepreneur, and how Bitcoin has taught you these, I don't know, like business practices. And you and I always talk about like the winning mentality, and how easy it really is to start dominating once you understand like what the game's being played. And this is like why I want to continuously try to push this message to the young ones out there. It's like, bro, if you are in, your early 20s, early 30s, and you are lost, like I'm telling you from personal experience that this is the way, this is what you're missing in your life, is this purpose of like, I can better myself, I can bootstrap myself. All I have to do is provide value, build something, and help the people around me get rich, put my capital where my mouth is, and build the world I want to see. And I feel like this message is like very simple, like a very non-complex message, but it gets like lost in on people or something. I don't
Well, it's
understand.
it's just like the stuff that I've told like you and Nico in the spaces. It's like when it like for fitness and health, it's not complicated. It's actually really really simple. Now, what people are doing is they're conflating simple and easy. Simple does not mean easy. It actually rarely ever means easy. Because if it's simple, you're gonna have to put like some serious effort into it. That's the problem. Like most people, they see a complex problem, they think it needs a complex solution. Rarely ever the case, actually. And I'm that's coming from I was an aircraft hydraulic specialist in the Army. Very complex, very specific stuff. Most of the time, it was a relatively simple solution. Um, Now, that simple solution can, require some complex steps to like execute it, but that's a little bit different. Um, but yeah, I think like, and I've said it before, like people are exceptionally skilled at overcomplicating things where they definitely don't need to be. And I think that like we're also kind of you and I are swimming against the tide on that, or swimming against the current of the river right now. Like most people are thinking we need complex solutions for complex problems. We're out here trying to help all the youngins out, and it's like, hey guys, it's not that difficult. Like go lift some heavy shit, eat some good food, get some good sleep, read books, and then you'll figure it out along the way. Like it's like all like because like to what you were getting at with the entrepreneurial stuff, like learning how to be an entrepreneur. Like I'm going through the paces just as much as you are right now. We're kind of actually exploring it like parallel to each other as we're doing our own thing. Um, but really, all you have to do is just like you learn as much as you can, and then when it gets to the point of you're gonna find a passion in there. You're gonna love something, whether you're like Jesse from Fast and the Furious and you just love working on engines, or you're like myself and you love just figuring out how the body works, or you love figuring out how Bitcoin and Lightning Network works, or you love figuring out really how anything like happens, or you're a hairstylist or a barber and you love doing that. Like all of that's value, and it's all important value to the system. As long as you do it, you enjoy it, and you do it well, all you have to do is stay persistent at that point, and then like the value will flow from the market towards you. Now it's also not necessarily that easy because you have to like talk about yourself when you get to that point, and talk about your business and all that stuff, but that's kind of superficial surface level stuff.
Absolutely love it. Yeah, man. It's very interesting. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's definitely simple, but the follow through is the hard part. And
Yeah.
that's where people, like stop on the journey. What's the meme where the guy's like digging for gold and he stops 3 feet from gold? Like I think that's what a lot of people think, especially us young people.
When that because that's when the difficulty mounts.
Exactly. And especially the young ones out there, we've all been inundated with social media and we all have this view of like, oh, I'm not a 24-year-old millionaire, like I must be a failure. I'm not a 30-year-old millionaire, I must be a failure. Like I didn't get successful overnight. And it's like, guys, it takes 10 years to be a success overnight. Like this is what most people don't tell you, is that it's going to take hard work, it's going to take persistence. And the only difference between you and someone that's successful is not only the mentality, but it's basically that they didn't stop and they did it earlier than you. So just don't fucking stop, guys. Like this is the simple
Well,
process.
and on the mentality thing, I've actually wrote a little bit on this for one of my future projects this morning. On the mentality thing is actually one of the biggest ones, because there's like in psychophysiology and behavioral therapy. There's been a lot that's come out in the last couple of years that they have found that negative thoughts produce an environment within the brain and the body that promotes further negative thought. So when you're an individual that's ruminating on negative thoughts, you're literally incentivizing your brain and your body to produce more negative thoughts, to the point of where it just becomes like it becomes a almost like a depression anxiety cascade. And the worst part about that is that almost all of it's perception, like all of it. Because like I was very much in that same position back 10 years ago, to the point of where you get stuck in this trap of negative thoughts. You don't think you're capable of doing anything to where your confidence is at like rock bottom. So when you go to try and do anything that's difficult or taxing, you don't expect to win. So you don't put as much effort into it. So you basically guarantee your own failure. And the hard part is that you have to really train yourself like through self-talk and all sorts of this other stuff, which I had to practice as well. I guess it's never easy. Like you have to get to this point where you have to rationalize away the negative shit. Like I apologize, this gets very like life coachy and self-helpy and it's kind of cringy, but it's like a very real problem that needs to be addressed. And you have to get to the point of where when you're having those negative thoughts, like you don't think you can do something, you really have to think about the bigger picture in the sense of, okay, you don't think you can do it, but what's the alternative? Are you just not going to try? Are you going to go work some like shitty dead end job and you're going to just like get further into the depression thing? Or is taking this risk worth it because at least you still have a chance of success? And I'm not saying taking a risk in the sense of going all in 100x on Bitcoin or some stupid shit like GameStop. Like you have to put in you have to have real intent and you have to have real like research and real thought behind it. But if you really want to start like changing your circumstances, you have to change the way you think about your own circumstances first.
100%. I try to avoid necessarily talking too much about this because it does sound very woo woo of like, oh,
Yeah.
self help, life coach stuff. But like, this is the only reason why I am here today is because I wanted to fundamentally understand not only how the mind works, but what reality was. And that's one of the things I've understand the most. Like your brain doesn't know any difference from negative and positive thoughts. It's pretty much binary. It's like whatever you think your reality is. What's the Henry Ford quote? Whether you think you can or you can't, like you're right. And
Yeah.
this is like how your life is. So like that's the important. Literally, that's why my name is Optimus Fields. Like I try to just be as positive and hopeful about the future as possible because I understand the power of your thoughts. Like if you truly understand how your mind works and the power of your thoughts, you'd never think a negative thought in your life. And this is part of the process. I think as Bitcoiners, we do harp a lot about the negativity in the world, and this is why you and I have really like dove deep into, hey, Bitcoiners, we could do a little better in our messaging.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is one of the most important things that I've learned lately. It's like, okay, if we're honest with ourselves, then us Bitcoiners aren't doing that good of a job with the Bitcoin message because there'd be more Bitcoiners if we were doing a great job. And I think it's back to this whole
Yep.
idea of as much as we need to point out the problems. We need to give people the solutions and paint it in a positive way so that more people want to fix their life to get better. And actually, Mike, you and I kind of talked about this. I don't know if it was in the space or if it was just like back and forth in DMs or what have you, but it was this idea of someone said like Bitcoin content creators are hardly talking about Bitcoin anymore. And it's back to this whole idea of like, yeah, we understand, fix the money, you can understand the technicals around Bitcoin, but what's also going on around this is people like fixing their minds and fixing their lives around this North Star that is Bitcoin. And I think that's just as important as anything else going on in the world because, like, hey, just saving money, saving Bitcoin isn't the end all be all of every problem in the world. It's just a start.
Yeah, well, and so this gets into another. I went on a rant in Toxic Happy Hour, and I apologize. I kind of dragged Anders and Pubby through that entire, and like the audience through this entire kind of autistic rant, which I'm about to go on here quickly, because I've been working on a essay that I think is very, very, very important. I would like to put it into like a book format because I have a friend that has been working on something that's very similar or aligned to what I'm about to talk about, and I would really like for him to have input into it as well. Um, but so like with the Simply guys and with the Cafe Bitcoin crew, I've talked a lot in the last couple of months about complex adaptive systems. Basically, a complex adaptive system is like just think of it like a neural network. Like everybody's seen pictures now of like a neural network is just constantly fluctuating and amorphous and changing. And a complex adaptive system is literally like what the body is. It's what a national or global economy is. It's there's a lot of things that are complex adaptive systems. And these systems are seeking homogeneity and just constant improvement. Like they're constantly seeking homogeneity through all the different variables and inputs that they're adjusting for and seeking balance in. But then they react to new stimuli and will adapt to the new stimulus and shift like resource distribution and everything throughout. What people don't understand is that in order for that kind of system to operate properly and to evolve properly, is it needs a unit of measure that is not fluctuating. So the obvious example would be Bitcoin versus the fiat dollar, because the fiat dollar, it's at the whims of humanity, and it's literally worthless. But with something like Bitcoin, where the whims of humanity do not affect the distribution or the subsidy cycle or anything, it becomes a true measurement of economic activity, to the point of where you can actually start parsing out the inefficiencies in the system. Like a great example would be how Bitcoin provides a use case for stranded and waste energy, right? But another great use case is in when you look at a complex adaptive system. In order for that system to grow and innovate, every single cell and node has to be trying as hard as it can to do whatever its purpose is. And this means that within the complex adaptive system of the US, when you understand how these systems operate, that means that every single individual in the United States or the world has value, has infinite value, because every single individual basically has infinite potential. Now, the only way that that system can improve is through a exchange currency that is a real measurement of efficiency gain, which would be Bitcoin. But B, as many participants in that system have to be essentially chasing their passions. They have to be, because like the one thing that humans do, like we can be really, really good at just about anything, but the passion has to be there. Because if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're not going to really care. You're not going to really try to get better at it. Or like even like the people that have their passions, they try to get better at it without even really caring to get better at it, because they just love doing what they're doing. So, and then this gets into the justification and understanding of like, I wanted to touch on this around the whole masculinity thing and the young guys, because it's not just young guys, it's also young girls. Like everybody has value, but in order for you to have the most value, you are behooved to go out and and find out what your passions are. Because when you find out what your passions are, then you can really start to iterate on them and practice them. And then you can get to the point of being so skilled at it to where you can provide value to the rest of the system. And then you can accrue market value out of it, which would be Bitcoin. So that I just wanted to bring that full circle, because like people need to understand that like you don't necessarily need politics, you don't necessarily need religion, you don't necessarily need family to have value for yourself. And that's, again, I got it. I've made it super cringy, but like people need to hear that.
Yeah. Mike, I love you. That's
Because it is cringy. Like it is very cringy to hear, but
oh man, love it. All right. I told you we're only gonna do an hour, and we kind of been ranting for a solid like 50 minutes already. And I promised the people we'd give them some health and nutrition advice. So how about you, TLDR? What would be like your very cookie cutter average advice for everyone out there in regards to either like, I don't know, eating correctly or exercise? Like I know one already you've told me before in the past in our spaces. Again, you're like, the food pyramid's a scam. Like like it's completely fake, and they're lying to you. And I was like, yeah, duh. Like, so I don't know. What little rabbit hole do you want to go down in health and nutrition for the last couple minutes? And then I got one question to roll this out.
The cookie cutter answer would be for anybody that's, regardless of where you are as far as like being a novice to adopting a more healthy lifestyle, you make one change at a time. You take scientific method. Like you take one change at a time, you practice it for anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, get it to the point where it's routinized, and then you add on a new change. Because one of the problems is that most people try to like they try to go from being a sedentary lifestyle, which those who don't know what that means, basically what I am is just sitting at a desk all day. Um, if you have a sedentary lifestyle and then you try to sprint and then train like an athlete, you're going to fail. You're you're not only going to fail because you're not an athlete, but you're going to fail because you're taking on too much change at once. And then you're going to burn out, you're going to overload yourself, you're going to relapse back to your old ways, and then you're going to do it for anywhere from like a couple weeks to a couple years, and then you're going to go back and try it again, and then you're going to do the same thing, and then you're going to fail. So and this is all the thing, like this is like the what I've learned as far as like the recipe for success too. You do one change at a time, or one improvement at a time, and you hammer it home, like you get the repetitions in, and then you do the next thing. Because like to the point that you were getting at is like I get all sorts of questions between like, okay, I need to improve my nutrition. I need to improve like exercising more during the week. I need to get better at hydrating. I need to get better sleep during the week. Like, which one do I start with? It doesn't matter. Pick one. And I get it. You're going to be frozen with like choices, but you literally, it's as, again, this is back to simple solutions for complex problems. Just pick one. Pick one, get good at it. Pick another one, get good at it. That's it. Like, that's all you have to do. And as far as the nutrition aspect, you want to get bang for your buck in nutrition. And that means bioavailability and nutrient density. Bioavailability is food that is naturally occurring. I don't know if you guys, I was going to send it to you. I was going to actually bring it up today, and I'm glad you brought that question up. I don't know if you guys saw, but there was an article that came out that said Bill Gates's lab-grown meat causes cancer. No shit, because it's not naturally occurring. It has to be like a food source that occurs naturally, because that's what our bodies evolved for. Your body like produces enzymes to specifically break down very specific naturally occurring products like glucose, fructose, lactose, protein, specifically animal protein, like all of it. Like, stop overcomplicating it. You don't need the Beyond Meat. It's crap. You don't need freaking Bill Gates's crap meat. It's junk. Like, you don't need Oreos. You don't need literally steak, eggs. Okay, ground beef is a little bit processed, but sure, why not? Whole milk, throw in some fruits and veggies, whatever you like in there. But specifically, you need the nutrient density, which is going to be the red meats. You can get poultry if you want, but I really recommend the red meats and the fish.
Uh-oh, now we're really getting canceled when we tell people to eat red meats. No,
Well, they were spilling all that garbage for like 10 years, suggesting that it causes heart disease because of cholesterol, which we finally found out it's not cholesterol that's causing heart disease. It's the freaking inflammation from all the sugar.
Oof.
Been
I love
lied to
sugar.
for like 20 years.
Oh man, if this is not a culmination of the whole fiat system, now we got a little tiny example in the food system, guys. If you read the fiat standard, then you know that what Mike's saying is the truth, and it's documented there as well, guys. Like, this is kind of back to this whole idea that I bring up here, and I try to hammer out every single day with Mike whenever he comes up and we start ranting, is this idea of like, not only have we been lied to about almost everything in our world, but like a very real thing has been stolen from us, and that is health, wealth, prosperous relationships, like living a life that I think a true human wants. And this is what the fiat system has stolen from us, and this is why I try to add to that conversation with like Mike and other friends. Like, look, man, you young dudes out there, also young ladies, you guys want to be fit and healthy as well, and build a family as well. But I noticed that a lot of Bitcoiners are very young men. And, this is the stuff that I just wish I knew 10 years ago. Like, if
Dude,
only
the freaking women that we have in Bitcoin, though, like the few that are there, freaking awesome.
Yeah, agreed. 100% agreed. And it's like, man, this is how we build the world that we really want to see is by what I always say, being fit mentally, being fit physically, and so that we can be a shining example of being a Bitcoiner. And I had this meme. I know a lot of Bitcoiners have said it, but it's very like kind of connecting it to everything we said. It's very funny that like I know that the meme of like the new counterculture is like just being conservative, but it's very funny how like the new counterculture is like doing what your great grandfather was trying to do in the 50s, what like we revolted from in like the 60s. And it's like you're just reverting back to like tradition and like, okay, like what doesn't the powers that be want us to do? It's like eat red meat, build a family, be strong mentally, be strong physically. They want us deaf, dumb, and blind. So like what are we going to do? Is like eat eggs, eat steak, get
Yep.
strong, eliminate all the bullshit in our lives, be as positive as possible, be hopeful for our future. And like, it literally doesn't have to be more complicated than that. But obviously, as we've been saying, like it's not easy. It's just the blueprint is simple, but you being persistent on that mission is the hard part. And it's like, I'd
Yeah.
be lying if we both, and I'm assuming that like there are days when you wake up when you're just like, I
Fuck
don't
it.
want to fucking do this shit. Like, what the fuck? And I think this is just part of being like a man. It's like, you're not going to always be happy. And I think actually, Mike, this isn't the question, but what's your idea on like the modern phenomenon on always being happy?
I don't know what that means.
Like, all right, you see it on social media. We are, digital, basically digitally native, the first generation of
You
digitally
mean you
native
mean
people.
like you mean like the whole like it's more popular in the female circles, but like self love, like that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
pretty much. Like you
It's
always be.
bullshit.
I knew it.
It is like it is though
No,
because
I
like
agree. I agree.
most of the people that women that like tout that stuff like oh self love, they're using it to justify very unhealthy lifestyle choices. It's like, oh, I'm practicing self love tonight. I'm gonna go out and get drunk with my friends. It's like, no, that's not self love. Self love is self improvement, and self improvement is learning, getting in the gym, being healthy, getting good sleep, and like reading books. Like it's self love is self development. It's not running away from your problems with drugs and alcohol. Now, don't get me wrong, drugs and alcohol every now and then, like you know, by all means go for it because I'll party a little bit too, but I'm not doing it every weekend. I'm doing it like once a quarter.
I love it. What you say, self love is self development. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. It's very interesting because I definitely came from like a woke culture. I am a Californian.
So did I.
Currently,
I came from the
yeah,
Democratic stuff. Like
exactly.
it's
So like I say it as a joke. I went full woke and then I woke up and like I definitely had that like self-love, thing. And ever since I basically found Bitcoin, and that's why I say, Bitcoin is the great motivator. Like I realized like, yo, you need to improve yourself so that you can get better, so that you can get more sats, so you can provide more value and also get more sats and save more sats. And it's just like a feedback loop of like, okay, build your skills, build your body up, build your mind up, learn the things you need so you can acquire more sats. Like this is the game plan. Obviously, it's not easy. Obviously, every one of us is an individual and we're all coming at it from a different angle. And there's, what I have to work on is probably not what you need to work on. But also, I kind of want to talk about like, guys, double down on your strength and fuck your
yeah.
weaknesses and like don't focus on the negatives of what you're doing. Just like get better at what you're good at. And it's kind of what Mike said, chase your passions, but also it'd be like, what passion aligns with you getting paid and providing value to society? That's probably the best way and the best avenue for you to go down. But I got one
I
last.
will add
Jump
I
in,
will
Mike.
add one disclaimer before you get into like the actual question that you wanted to ask. I would say chase what you're good at, but lean into what you suck at.
Oof, facts.
Because like that can be in the gym and that can be in life, that can be in your hobbies. Well, maybe not hobbies. Hobbies is a little bit different. Um, but particularly in the gym is like everybody wants to do what they're good at. But if you really want to get great, like you and David Goggins will probably say that would probably say the same thing. Like you have to really lean into your weaknesses because like it's just like the whole the a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Like you're no different. Like so for example, like in the gym is like bodybuilding is a very easy example. Like if your legs are your weak point, you need to hit legs. You need to hit legs extra hard. And every guy wants to go in and like just like bench press, you know, like 315 pounds and like beat their chest like King Kong. But if you got tiny legs, bro, it doesn't matter because like the real power is in your legs. Real power is in your legs and your back. And that's where you get into like the whole foundational kind of philosophy of why I think that every male and every young man needs to like be trained in the gym first because you learn a lot of philosophical rules in between the limits of a squat rack. Like you do the foundational stuff first. You get your legs and your back secured and strong. Then you can do the fun stuff.
Yeah, nothing's more embarrassing than the guy with like 21-inch arms and like little chicken legs. Like, bro, come on. Like
Yeah.
you look tough from the top part, but like you need the whole picture. And
Yep.
yeah, man, I absolutely I couldn't agree more. And I had a blast. But I want to end this. I'm pretty sure I already know what you're gonna say, and I've been asking everyone the same question. And it's a very simple question, and sometimes people answer it, you know, very, very short. Sometimes we get into a longer conversation. But the question is Bitcoin the most important invention in humanity and human history?
That's a really good question. Um, I'm gonna say no because Bitcoin relied on writing first. If writing wasn't
Oof.
around, then there wouldn't be any cryptography, and if there wasn't cryptography, there wouldn't be any Bitcoin. Um, Now, I would say that Bitcoin is currently the most important thing out there um, because of all the dynamics we talked about, like behavioral economics and demographics and all this other stuff. It's providing a lot of solutions to a lot of problems and inefficiencies. Problems being the demographic issue, inefficiencies being the power problem, as well as the infrastructure problem that goes along with the power problem. Um, but I wouldn't say Bitcoin is the most important thing.
Love it. Absolutely love
And
it.
no, fiat smack birth control is not hard to top. Birth control is a very very fiat kind of thing.
Oh man, the chat. Oh, I love the chat here. I love the chat.
It's
All
been
right.
popping off, dude. Your chat's gotten wild tonight.
Yeah, the chat, they're the unsung heroes here. This is what makes it that much more fun is the people that hang out with us on the chat. But anyways, I told you it's an hour. We're a couple minutes over. So at the very end, Mike, what do you want the people to know that you're working on? When can we expect what you're working on? And I'm gonna give you a time clock, ETA, so that you finish it, so that we get it, bro. So what are you working on? You kind of mentioned in the beginning. Where can people find you? All that good stuff.
Um, the Substack would be drdune.substack.com again. Um, and then my Twitter would be the Mike Hobart with two E's. I pronounce it the, but everybody for whatever reason doesn't pick up on the fact that a long E means two E's. So the Mike Hobart. Um, and then what I'm working on is I'm working on building out a website where I can put it can be kind of like a one-stop shop for like my Bitcoin education stuff, my blog posts on Substack, my and I'm working on putting together some personal training stuff, like online personal training. So anybody that's interested in that, but that I'm gonna give that like maybe a month because I'm doing a lot of stuff. I'm I'm preparing a presentation for Bitcoin Day out in Omaha on May 6th. So if anybody's looking for a conference circuit to attend, like I'll be out there. I'm going to be speaking. So that should be pretty cool. It's on Berkshire Hathaway like weekend. So I'm obviously going to shit on Berkshire Hathaway a little bit. And so that should be pretty exciting, at least for me. Um, Other than that, I would like to also be putting together some stuff for a book or two. Um, I've already got plenty like of content to be able to put together a book, but I need to string everything together, and that's an amount of effort that I'm kind of putting off until I can get some of this other stuff knocked out. So that's what I'm working on. That's what you can expect, and then I'll be talking about any mixture of macroeconomics and shit posting on Twitter if you guys follow me.
And he'll be ranting in our spaces whenever I get him up, guys. So hey,
Yep.
Mike, absolutely love this. Hang out for 20 seconds while I roll this out and we get the full credits going. So
Okay.
yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I'll bring Mike back on and let me know what parts you want us to hit on some more. And I'm sure we can definitely come back and do some more rants. But again, guys, if you listen to this, if there's anything you take away, man, it's that we are winning. All you dudes out there, all you women, all of us in the younger generation, there's a lot of us out here. There's a lot of us without purpose. There's a lot of us that need the great motivator that is Bitcoin. And it's just upon us to usher in this world. If you take the fourth turning thesis, we are that fourth turning generation. We are the hero generation, and it's going to be upon us, guys. So get yourself mentally, physically fit so that we can usher in the world we want to see. And also spread the signal to the youngins out there. Do not let them beat their heads against the brick wall. We have the solutions. Let's try to get people to stop focus on the problems, because the only thing that matters is the solution, and the solution is Bitcoin. Take Bitcoin into self-custody. Anyways, guys, we will see you tomorrow. Same time as always, 12:15 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube. Really appreciate Mike's time. I'm really honored that you guys like this TTO series. And so I'll keep bringing in more friends. We'll continue down these same themes, and we'll just keep beating the message, keep beating the drum, guys. All right. Anyways, peace out, and we will see you tomorrow, boys and girls.